So picture this, you have saved for years, booked that flight to the motherland. Your heart is racing, you're ready for the drums, the history, and the belonging. Then finally, no more stairs, just black faces everywhere. But then there are the stairs, but just the different one that you use to, or just for different reasons. The cities, they're more like mini New Yorks than jungle huts, and that welcome home sometimes, comes with a side of who are you really?
I'm speaking of Black people, but really this could be applicable to anybody. And I'm saying this at a time where a lot of Americans are starting to think about leaving America. A lot already have, but especially right now, more people are starting to think about leaving. And I am begging you to leave capitalism here. America isn't just bad because of racism. I know that racism might be the thing that you feel the most tangibly. Racism is an arm of capitalism, which came from colonialism. Leave capitalism here. If you're leaving, leave to start new. I'm specifically looking at African Americans who are moving to African countries. And I'm just seeing colonists. We've got to understand what it is. We've got to call a spade a spade. It doesn't make you better because you're Black. We cannot just move in droves with no desire to connect to the countries we're moving to, just with the purpose to extract, just build for ourselves. You want to move to build a business for yourself. You want to move to invest for yourself. You're not moving to invest in the country. You're not moving to invest in the community there. You're moving to invest for yourself. What do we call that? We see that on a domestic level in the United States. I just moved back to Atlanta. I grew up around Atlanta. I'd always wanted to come back, and I came back to find that, the culture is being sucked out of here. Don't even get me started on the economy. I mean, people move here with no care about what was here before at all. And I know y'all have had to see that in other parts of America. So I'm not understanding how you can move to these other countries and do the same thing. I'm already seeing videos about all this dissent from Ghanaians and Kenyans who are talking about how the American migrants there have caused the economy to jump ×4. I need us to be critical. Okay, this has to be bigger than you. This has to be building a better world. You can only aspire to be what the colonizers were. You can't think outside of that. You can't aspire bigger to that. And look, honestly, imagining a new world is hard. But I promise you, the countries that you move to, somebody's thought about it. Plug into what's there. Please, if you're looking at migrate with intention, and with the intention to connect to the community there. Instead of asking, what business can I start? What needs to be done there? How can you bring your skills? Don't just become a new extractor. I can't get down with that. I don't want to be grouped in with y'all. Come on. And then it's that road leads to nowhere. Capitalism eats itself. In the United States, we're witnessing late stage capitalism. That's what we're leaving. So you want to just go and create the whole cycle. You want to just go start the cycle in a whole new country. And it's okay because you look like them.
So as much as, they want to sell your fears of coming back to Africa, because referring to this, the former, the economic minister back then, Tom Boyer, who said that, these, Black Americans, they have nothing in common with the Africans rather than the color of the skin. He was preparing them, for the tough things that they need to actually do it, to get prepared while coming back to Africa. But the end of all this, he said, welcome home, because he believed, these are our long lost brothers, and this calls for the end of actually what? The enmity between the Black Americans and the diaspora Black, because in America, they don't see you as the African or the Black American. They see you as Blacks. and you've seen videos of actually, that depicted how racism, the fascists, the white fascists, have been treating, the people of the color. And above all, you will say that it feels good to to be home, because I was reading this article. It says Black Americans started meeting actual Africans. Everybody was romanticizing Africa until the point of cosplaying what they thought was the culture. In the Ebony articles, are Black Americans welcome in Africa? That was in the year 1969. So you say the Kenya economic minister say, I found sometimes there's a complete misunderstanding of what African culture really means. For example, some people think that to identify as African, one has to wear some cheap Japanese or Hong Kong made textile, wear a shaggy beard or a piece of cloth, or skin on the head, or having to wear one hair natural, These are conditions imposed on African today by circumstances of poverty, limitation in technical and educational and other resources. These must not be confused with culture. He also said, which I said earlier, they don't have that. He said that American N who comes here has one thing in common with Kenyan, his color. So hey family, welcome to this channel. So today we'll be diving into a truth that most people don't talk about. The real cultural shock African Americans faces when they first visit Africa. Now here, the joy, the tears, the confusion, and the deep awakening all hit, So over 10,000 Black Americans, or the Black people, visited or relocated to Africa last year. These were all chasing that reconnection after the 400 years apart. So this one might inspire you, or you make you think twice. But let's jump in. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends or that Black friend. So if you ever felt like you need to go to the motherland, this video is for you. If you ever felt like, am I safe when I relocate back to Africa, this video is for you. Now, I'll be breaking down into segments. So the first one is belonging versus otherness. The sense of you belonging but versus other, So the first shocks is belonging. That moment when you step off the plane and see one black face. It's powerful, like a lion returning to the wild after maybe lost in the jungle. For a second, you feel that invisible chain drop. You are home. Or so you think. Then comes the second wave. Someone asks, so which tribe are you from? And you remember the last video I did, there's a comment which say that Africa is not divided by race, but it's divided by racism. Not racism, but tribalism. When you go to Nigeria, it's Igbo, it's all those tribes. Maybe South Africa, it's the Sosa, And when you come to Kenya, maybe it's like, are you Kikuyu, a Luo, So the sense of tribalism. When you arrive, or you get that side eye, like you are a tourist in your own ancestry, So one woman in Kenya said, a villager told her, we want whites here, not you. You are not even a real woman, which is so sad, actually, and very harsh, right? That's the reverse othering. Skin connect us, but 400 years apart leaves a very big gap between those at home. Humbles you. So, ever felt home but still out of place? Please comment down below. Then the second segment is the myth busting, the motherland. The second shock, Africa isn't what you are shown. You expect dirty roads and huts. Instead, highway, Wi-Fi, Teslas, and KFC. There's one traveler who said, skyscrapers. I came for the roots, not the skyline. Yeah, that's real. But the flip side is some over romanticized it, romanticize the whole experience. They expect a constant drumming and hugs. Instead, power cuts, mid Netflix, traffic that could age you 5 years, and food that's an experience. Banco hit difference where you're not ready for a fermented corn. And trust me, Jollof debate can start wars. Here's the truth. African's modern, just not Western modern. It moves on its own rhythm, you know, and it packs patience and brave curiosity. You bust that myth, people thought that Africa, they still live in jungles, they still, like the pictures you have been portrayed, because I've seen videos, I've seen content creators who have made videos in the village, and the comments are always harsh. But the truth is, 60% of Africans lives in a modern world.
You about to raise my blood pressure, because if it's one thing I'm gonna do, that's advocate for Mama Africa. Now let's talk about some of these preconceived notions. They want you to believe Africa is poor, dangerous, and broken. And that narrative is outdated and it's intentional. Africa is one of the most resource-rich continents on the planet, holding vast reserves of gold, diamonds, cobalt, rare earth metals, and the raw materials that power the global tech economy. Not to mention, it's also the youngest continent in the world. And 60% of its population is under 25, meaning it's literally the future of innovation, creativity, and labor is already taking shape across the 54 countries. Or is it 55 countries now? But anyway, it's also home to the oldest human fossil. Africa is the blueprint. It's the cradle of modern humanity. And a lot of people speak about Africa and treat it like it's one country, but the continent is vast, it's diverse. Over 2,000 different languages are spoken, hundreds of different cultures, and some of the fastest growing economies on earth. So when outsiders use these preconceived notions to convince you a place is hopeless, it's often because they want to exploit it while you look the other way. And when people tell us, go back to Africa, baby, I pack my bags gladly. But if you only know the Africa they show you, baby, you won't know Africa at all.
And there's always a dark side, which I'll cover this in segment 3. Now let's talk about the hard stuff. Not every story ends with a smile. Hospitality is real, but so is rejection. One American woman in Kenya said locals saw her as rich outsider. Another brother started a farm in Burkina Faso. It was burned down. And you've seen others share stories of robberies, bribes, heartbreaks. Sometimes there's tragedy, yeah. A woman in Ghana was suspected of poison after a conflict. A traveler in South Africa was robbed at a knife point. Even Morocco, there's a culture shock that deep down people came back in tears. But let's be clear, these are not the African bashing stories. They are human stories. 80% still say their trip changed them for better. They grew, they learned, because it's not about danger, it's about the discovery. If you go online, I think you've seen videos, of content creators, of people who have moved back in Africa, and they're living a very successful and awesome life. They have been received very well. So it's only that, don't expect honey. Don't expect milk and honey. Expect sometimes dirty water. And that's the reality. So moving to motherland may not be fun. May not be smooth. I've seen people say like, have enough money to kickstart you. Think of business. But don't come to Africa and you start maybe disrespecting. I've seen the unity that people have had against the blacks Americans that have come to Africa, and they disrespect the African. The recent case was there's an American, a black American traveler or YouTuber who came to Kenya, and he said, hashtags about, about the African ladies or the Kenyan ladies, the economy, the food. The guy ended up losing his YouTube channel, which is the farthest, saddest reality. But I like how, those the content creators, the black Americans, the black content creators from abroad that have come to Africa, and they had the best experience, and they call out, when people are disrespecting the countries which they have found success. Yeah, and that is the reality. Now, let's talk about the healing. This is as a segment, so after the shock, there comes a shift. You stop seeing Africa as a fantasy and start seeing it as a family. The year of return become the reclamation wave. Black Americans aren't just visiting, they are investing. They are building schools, farms, tech hubs, and communities. One woman said, Africa gave me back my proud flaws and also here what most travelers learn. 1. Do your homework, learn the culture. 2. Start in the cities. 3. Pack grace, not judgment. Because Africa isn't just what you come from, it's a mirror showing who you are. You know. So, family, culture shock, it's just the price of the truth. Now, if this hit home, drop your story below. Was your trip to Ghana a glow up or Kenya a cover bottle? Was your trip in Nigeria what you expected? Was your trip in South Africa what you expected? And don't and guys, smash that like button, subscribe for more unfiltered diaspora talk, and hit that bell so that you don't miss the next one.
I get asked all the time, why would you leave the USA to come to Africa? Or specifically Namibia, if it's a Namibian asking. I realize a lot of people don't know the experience of what a Black American looks like. But the first answer is, it's spiritual. This is the land that my ancestors are from. I am from African ancestry. And this is where I believe I belong. My ancestors came from here. They didn't come because they wanted to be in America. They came because they were taken as captives, prisoners of war. And that is a different thing than if they had decided, if my ancestors said, I love America, I love this land, I want to go there. Maybe that's a different thing. Maybe I'd have a different spirit about it. But at this point, I felt a deep spiritual call, and my husband as well. We felt a deep spiritual call to be in this land. And it was a spiritual call we could not deny for any conveniences that we might have had in the States. So we achieved the American dream in the States. We worked very hard. We both came from families that were hardworking people that had to work from the bottom to the, to get to college and to achieve our dreams. And then we were able to save up enough money to be able to make this move, which is expensive and risky. And it takes a lot of money to do that. But we achieved the American dream, and we took our American dream dollars and brought them to Africa to reinvest here. And that means a lot to us. And again, that's a very spiritual thing to do. And for those who don't really understand what it meant to be a Black American, I mean, it's very tough to tell that story in a TikTok. But America in and of itself is not the place it's propagandized to be. It's a place with a lot of challenges and problems. There's a lot of poverty in America. People in America are poor. They live on the concrete on the street, and it's illegal to live on the street. So they can be arrested for sleeping on the street. There are a lot of shootings and things like that. There's a lot of death that we witness, to the point that we're desensitized to it. I remember taking my husband to my hometown, and we went to go visit my aunt. And across the street from my aunt, there was a clear crime scene. And I asked my aunt what happened. She's like, "Hey, baby, I'm so glad to see you guys. But good to see you too. But what happened across the street?" She said, "Oh, I think a little kid was killed. But I got some food for you." And I'm like, "Okay." You know, we just kind of had to ignore it. And the whole time we're looking at each other like, there was a murder across the street. They're still sleeping. And she's just like, "Oh, yeah, it's fine. I'm glad you're here. I haven't seen you in years. You know, I miss you." And I'm like, okay, this is America. You know, this is what it looks like. I mean, it's all of the above. It's wealth, and it's extreme poverty, and it's murder. I remember going, I was hosting an event, and that morning I had to run. I was trying to rush to go get some sodas and stuff from Walmart. And there had been these news stories about this Walmart shooter. And I remember seeing the stories, but I was like, I still got to go to the grocery store. So I got up that morning to go to Walmart. And then I'm behind this car, and I'm like, what's going on? I'm so mad because I'm rushing. The police are pulling somebody over. And there's so many police, I can't even get around it or something or anything. And then it turns out they open the trunk, and there's a bunch of big guns in the back of the car. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm behind the Walmart shooter on the way to Walmart. We were both on the way to the same store at the same time. Oh my gosh. You know, that's life in America. That was life in Colorado, the birthplace of school shootings. You know, and again, you know, America has both of the things. It has beautiful things. It has places that are as beautiful as this, what I'm in right now. And it has places as dark as what you would think hell might look like. They literally have places named after hell in America. Rightly so, because they're dark places. So it goes it goes every direction in that country. So there's no one America. There's no one American experience. There's really no one Black American experience. So I say all that to just say, you know, what you believe America is may not be accurate, and that is part of the reason people can't even believe why anybody would want to leave. Why would you want to leave the USA? It's got to be the best place ever, and it's not necessarily the best place ever. And then people that don't know about Africa will say, why would you go to Africa? You know, it's not a great place. Like, why? It's in poverty. It's, you know, a third world country. And I'm like, Africa has many countries. And it's not a third world continent. And even the third world has some amazing features and beauty and beautiful people and culture. And being third world, which is a very old concept, just means not like what you knew, not industrialized the way you knew it. Poverty exists just like it is in America. I have fed people on the street in America. I have seen starving children in America. And so I know that it exists in both places. So, you know, I'm not trying to minimize anything. I'm just trying to remind people that haven't been to Africa that there are many, many parts of Africa. There are many, many experiences in Africa just like in the States. So just like in the States, you can be in poverty in the United States, have very little, live in a dilapidated house. You can in Africa live in poverty in a dilapidated house and scrimp and scrounge for food. You can also be very wealthy and live in a giant house and have an abundance of everything that you'd ever want living in Africa, and for a lot cheaper than you can get it in America. Just saying, you know. So the experiences that we're talking about, there's diverse experiences everywhere. So don't discount, the experience of a person and what guides and leads them. I'm guided by spirit. And so my guidance is in here. And my guidance tells me this is the place I need to be. This is my home. And I'm happy to be home.